You know, it really does feel like every large set that is released in Pocket has a massive meta shift, and it looks like the Way of Sky and Sea, the Lugia Ho-Oh themed set that is coming out next week, is no different. Hi everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw! We are going to talk about the cards that are leaked. We are going to talk about the implications from some of those cards and some of the strategy that we might see with this upcoming set. I can't believe it's Gen 2, but it is Gen 2. Let's get into it. We'll start with our EX, Lugia EX. I should mention, by the way, while in the trailer we saw 4 EX cards, in Spacetime Smackdown we had 10. So there are many more that could be coming in this set. Lugia EX, however, HP 150. It is weak to lightning. It has an attack called Elemental Fury, costing 3 energy, fire, water, lightning. Stay with me because there's a reason this Pokemon works this way. Elemental Fury deals 180 damage, and then you discard 1 fire, 1 water, and 1 lightning energy from this Pokemon to retreat cost. Decent HP pool, massively powerful attack, right? We recently saw this on Dragonite EX as well. This is with a basic, however, the energy cost is difficult, right? And I think the next card actually answers a lot of what's going on here. We have Ho-Oh EX, 150 HP, basic. Phoenix Turbo is its attack for 3 colorless energy. Take a fire, a water, and a lightning energy from your energy zone and attach them to your basic Pokemon in any way you like. This is actually really interesting because, of course, it directly powers up Lugia. In fact, if it can attack twice, you've powered Lugia twice, which is just amazing, right? However, this also has so many other implications in the set. You now take 3 energy and attach it to your bench in any way you would like. If you're running cards that require colorless energy, then obviously this is amazing. If you're running cards that require even 1 colorless energy, something like Giratina that can power itself, this is extremely powerful. If you're trying to build a Dragonite and you've got Dratini on the bench, it does need to be a basic Pokemon, by the way, and you got Dratini on the bench, you can power it with water and lightning and fire, enough for Dragonite EX, and then next turn, Rare Candy, evolve that and fight. Like, Ho-Oh is insanely powerful. Lugia might be more specific, but there's more going on with this set that could actually set up some crazy situations for Lugia as well. Ho-Oh EX feels incredibly strong. 3 energy to do 80 damage isn't phenomenal, but the energy generation is incredible. Both weak to lightning, by the way, which is interesting. Obviously, they're flying around there, so they're getting zapped down by some of those thunderbolts. I'm curious to see if lightning has a really good meta, because super powerful cards are weak to it. Moving on, we have Chikorita, able to do 20 damage for a single grass energy with 60 HP, weak to fire. We also have Cyndaquil, able to do 20 damage for a single fire energy, weak to water. We have Totodile, able to do 20 damage for a single water energy, weak to lightning. All of them with 60 HP. We don't know which one of these, if any of them, will be the EX. I'm hoping that we see Feraligatr EX because water is in a bad spot, and I would love to see some cool stuff happen for water in this set. However, it might with some of our supporter cards and some of the supporter cards we haven't seen. Let's talk about babies for a little bit. When a mommy and daddy love each other very much, wait a minute, I'm talking about baby cards. We have Pichu right here. 30 HP, which is something to talk about. However, a no-cost attack, Sparkling Throw. Take an energy from your energy zone and attach it to one of your benched Pokemon. Notice it says an energy from your energy zone. So it does not necessarily mean that this has to be in a lightning deck. This requires no energy to use. However, it's only 30 HP. So just about anything in the game can KO this in a single hit. Baby Pokemon are going to be very, very interesting, but just like babies in real life, you never want them to fight fully grown adults. All right, moving on to our next card. We have Cleffa, also 30 HP, a baby Pokemon. No cost for Sparkling Call. Take a random Pokemon from your deck and add it to the cards in your hand. We're talking about Shiinotic, but with some different situations, right? This needs to be in the active spot. It requires no energy. It is also not a stage 1. However, it is your attack, right? So it is ending your turn and you are pulling a card into your hand, meaning your hand is more vulnerable to things like Mars or things like Red Card at a point like that. And again, 30 HP. Very, very low HP, but I am interested to see what would happen with some of these babies. They could be very, very valuable cards. Moving on to our next card here, we have Gyarados. Shiny, shiny Gyarados. 130 HP. We have that shiny red Gary. Furious Lashing is its attack for only 2 water energy. You're able to do 20 damage plus more damage based on the amount of water Pokemon you discard from your bench. The attack does 40 more for each benched Pokemon you discard. Obviously, if you can throw 3 Pokemon from your bench, this card will be able to do serious damage, right? You'll be able to swing for 120 damage on top of your 20 right there. So 140 damage total. And this is not an EX Pokemon, so 140, pretty solid. Obviously, this feels like a very cheesy setup. This could be paired in a really interesting way with like a wishy-washy deck or something like that. Fishing Net obviously would be a very valuable card for something like this. This allows you to do a ton of damage and discard a bunch of cards. If they have damage on them, by the way, they're thrown away and your opponents can no longer Cyrus them. And if you need one of them back, you can always get it with a fishing net. This is probably one of the like not so good cards in the set, but it will be pretty funny when you build this deck. Moving on from Gary, we have Umbreon EX and then we have Espeon EX. Both of these are interesting cards. One feels a lot better than the other. Let's talk about Umbreon EX. 140 HP, it's weak to grass here. Its ability is Shadow Tag. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon that has damage on it with their active Pokemon. If that sounds familiar, of course it does. It's because Shadow Tag has it once during your turn. If this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon that has damage on it with their active Pokemon. If this sounds familiar, it's because I just said it twice, but it also, if it actually sounds familiar, it's because this is exactly like Cyrus. If you have this Pokemon in the active spot, you have a free Cyrus every single turn, which is crazy. You also have Darkness Fang as an attack, doing 80 damage for 2 energy with a 2 retreat cost. It's good that Umbreon is actually decent, Umbreon EX, because base Umbreon is terrible. So I'm excited to see Umbreon in a pretty cool way. However, base Umbreon could work pretty well into things like Ho-Oh, Lugia, right? So maybe we get some really cool dark decks with this. However, I do think that Espeon EX is pretty underwhelming. 140 HP as well, weak to dark, 80 damage for 2 psychic energy. Its ability Care, once during your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active position, which is a big ask here, you may heal 20 damage from one of your Pokemon. We just have not had metas in this game where this has been very relevant at all. Like these small heals and things like this. This has not been super meta relevant in almost any meta that we've had. You think back to Pokemon that do damage and heal themselves. There are Pokemon that have helped out with healing, like the Grass Shaman actually was pretty good, but that sits on the bench and heals your entire team as an ability. This needs to be in the active spot. I'm sure you could build some Psychic decks with this. It has a single retreat cost, so you could possibly pair it with things like Lunala, move energy around, attack for a little bit, and then heal, and then retreat. In general, though, I feel like Espeon EX looks pretty underwhelming, and I don't think this card will be particularly meta. However, we don't know what other things come in this set that maybe could change that. And as we're going a little further, we're going to get to our supporters here, and our supporters have some huge implications. So let's start here with Lyra, or Lyra. Choose one of your Pokemon, shuffle it, and all cards attached to it into your deck. So, right now when you're thinking of cards attached to it, of course, we're thinking about things like tools, right? There may be other cards that you would be attaching to Pokemon, which we can talk about here very soon. Choose one of your Pokemon, shuffle it, and all cards attached to it into your deck. This is interesting. Now, obviously, if you look at something like Ilima, that card is going back into your hand if you have damage on it and it is a colorless, right? This is any Pokemon, all the cards back into your deck. Now, if you've already milled through a lot of your deck with Sylveon, it's not going to be too hard to get this card again. However, one thing to consider is a thing that is not attached to one of your Pokemon is something like Rare Candy. So if you have used Rare Candy to evolve your Stoke Charizard and you throw it all back in your deck, if you don't have another Rare Candy or a way to evolve that otherwise, you've got cards that you can pull out of the game, which could be extremely powerful, right? However, you don't have a way to reactivate that Pokemon and get them back to a stage 2. So you're going to need to be careful with how exactly you are going to use this. Also, I mean, it should be noted, it says choose one of your Pokemon. So you can use this in a moment where you know your opponents are going to Cyrus something from your bench. You can use this to pull something out of the active spot and put something into the active spot. I do think there are some really cool strategic implications from this card, and we could see some very exciting decks because of it, right? If you know that your card is going down to a single hit from your opponent, you can throw it all back into your deck, put something up into that active spot that is not super relevant, and then build back up on the bench or continue building something you have on your bench. This could be a very, very strong card. Our next supporter is kind of huge. Silver. Trainer, supporter, remove a special energy card from one of your opponent's Pokemon. Special energy. We don't have it yet in Pokemon Pocket, but it is coming. And given that special energy is coming, and then there are a few notable ones like double colorless and rainbow in the main TCG, I think we are heading towards a very, very interesting meta. Probably one of the biggest meta shifts that we've had. However, it does feel like every time one of these big sets comes out, we have a huge meta shift. Space-Time Smackdown felt very different. Obviously, Celestial Guardians had Rare Candy, and I mean, that was an insane shift. And I think we're moving into that again, but it's going to be all based around energy. Energy is going to be the big thing in this set. If we have double colorless, a lot of previous EX cards that were kind of Garbo, like full-on Greta Garbo garbage. I don't know if Greta Garbo is bad. I just thought it was funny to say that. Those cards could actually be good. Like things that need a lot of colorless energy with double colors, they could be good. And then you're going to be running something like silver in a lot of your decks to counter something like that. This also means that we have a lot of opportunities to power things that maybe had an awkward energy requirement before, and now they no longer have such an awkward requirement. You know, Dragon cards have always had this annoying thing where they require like 80 different kinds of energy, and then you have to get them to a stage 2. But now this makes it a lot more consistent if we have different energy that we are able to attach to our cards. Special energy will be a game changer, which also means that silver is probably a game changer. You pair that with the fact that Sylveon I don't think is necessarily going anywhere super soon. You're going to get a lot of the cards that you need very, very quickly, and you're going to be able to power things quickly. Rare Candy made the meta very fast. This could make the meta extremely fast in a different way, and it also could unlock so many different cards that we have forgotten about because they just have weird energy requirements, just awkward powering them up, but now it could be so much better. Again, we don't have any of the energy, but we do know that it is coming because of this card. Moving on to our next tool, we have the Rescue Scarf. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is switched with your active Pokemon, heal 30 damage from this Pokemon. My brain immediately goes to something like Buzzwole and Celesteela and things like that. Obviously, something where you're shuffling around a lot. You start to heal up a considerable amount. However, there are still lots of situations where you need an extra buffer of HP. Something like a Giant or Leaf Cape is more valuable because something is going to one-shot you. Then there are other situations where, look, if they're powering up Lugia on the other side, I guess it doesn't matter much either way, right? As long as you're stopping some damage before Lugia comes in and trying to take that thing down as quickly as you can. I do wonder, with Ho-Oh and Lugia both being EXs, both being really popular Pokemon. I wonder if we have Red make a little bit of a comeback, because with 150 HP and the fact that they don't hurt themselves like Giratina, it might be difficult to take those Pokemon down in one swing. Rescue Scarf could be really cool for some specific decks, especially, again, a deck that loves to move Pokemon around. Solgaleo also has an interesting, combination with this. If you have two Solgaleos sort of moving back and forth between that active spot. So there are a lot of Pokemon that could take advantage of this in a cool way. This feels like it's going to be maybe not super impactful in the meta, but it's going to have some really fun decks. And then finally, we have Elemental Switch, which is really, really strong, it feels like. Move a lightning energy and a fire energy from your Pokemon to your active Pokemon. So you're now able to move 2 energy from your bench to an active, which just seems, again, really, really good, especially if you're looking to power up something like this Lugia. However, once again, with a lightning energy and a fire energy, you're 2/3 of the way there to Dragonite EX, and with 1 extra colorless on it, just almost the way to Dragonite, right? You would just throw another water and then have 1 other colorless energy on there. Moving 2 energy from your bench is incredibly strong. You also can see a ton of situations where you don't end up moving 2 energy at all. You just use it to move either lightning or fire energy alone, right? It doesn't need to move both. It just can move both. So in this set, in just the new cards we've seen, I feel like it's probably the most impactful cards that we have seen in a set that feel like they're going to dictate the meta, maybe outside of the reveal we got that showed Rare Candy. Because I do think Rare Candy was like, whoa, this isn't showing the energy, but it's telling you what is coming in Pocket and what that's going to look like. I mean, I can't wait. Gen 2 is like, it's got my heart and soul silver. Like, I love it. It's got my heart gold and soul silver. It's just so cool, man. And I think this set is going to be really exciting. We also very likely have 6 other EXs coming. I would love to hear from you in the comments. What other EXs do you think are coming to the game? I do think it should be mentioned, by the way, that, we're talking a lot about, maybe Totodile or Cyndaquil. We have Ho-Oh, we have Lugia. Ho-Oh generates water, fire, lightning. We have Suicune, Raikou, Entei. I really do think we could see them maybe not even as EXs. We possibly could see them as EXs as well. So if water ever needed something to like get back in the meta, maybe it's Suicune EX. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hopefully new information coming soon. We didn't get Pocket at the presents, but we got this, which is a present all in itself. Goodbye. We did it.